You ever notice how the smell of fresh-cut grass can go from soothing to straight-up soul-crushing in about 3 seconds? Yeah, that happened. For years, Arthur Vance had his hedges, big, beautiful, 10-foot-tall walls of green, blocking out the chaos of the neighborhood, especially the relentless stare of Brenda Carmichael. If you don't know Brenda, count your blessings. She ran the Cypress Creek HOA like a cross between Judge Judy and a drill sergeant, obsessed with order, roses, and, God help you, uniform landscaping. So here's how it started. Arthur gets a note on his windshield. No signature, just some linen paper and handwriting so fancy it might as well have said, Brenda was here. The note basically said, your hedges are too tall, chop them to 7 feet, or else. Arthur, being the peace-loving librarian type, trimmed a couple feet, figured that'd be enough. He was wrong. 2 days later, he gets an official violation letter, with a $50 a day fine, signed, of course, by Brenda herself. Now, Arthur tries to play nice. He calls the number on the letter. Who picks up? Brenda, pretending it's some business line. Your hedges are still non-compliant, Mr. Vance. She chirps. 7 feet. Not 8. Not 9. And certainly not 10. The woman even manages to say unruly, like his hedges were a bunch of teenagers at a rock concert. Look, Brenda, these hedges have been here longer than your HOA rules. Covenants apply to all, she sniffs. And your plants are blocking the sun from my crimson glory roses. I mean, come on, you know what I mean? Arthur offers to cut another half-foot. She shuts him down. The HOA will take action. Next thing you know, it's Tuesday, usually the quietest day of the week, and Arthur's sipping coffee, reading a first edition when the sound starts. Gas-powered hedge trimmers, loud as lawnmowers, roaring outside his window. He looks outside. 2 big guys in landscaping uniforms are going at his hedges like they're clearing a forest. Not trimming, leveling. The whole row is gone in minutes. Brenda's across the street, arms folded, smirking like the Grinch on Christmas morning. One of the landscapers actually gives her a thumbs up. Arthur runs out, voice cracking. What the hell are you doing? They just point to a clipboard. HOA directive, sir. Brenda's voice rings out, like she's announcing a royal decree. Non-compliant, Mr. Vance. This is on you. His living wall, 20 years old, is nothing but stumps and wood chips. The morning sun blazes through the window, making everything harsh and exposed. Brenda, not missing a beat, walks over and starts watering her roses, doesn't even look at him. He feels hollowed out, standing there with his hand on a stump. But something changes. The pain turns to ice-cold resolve. He looks at the scarred earth, Brenda's stupid roses, and thinks, you want to play games? Let's play. That night, he's on the internet, not looking up rare books, but researching city codes, masonry, fencing laws. He finds it. The HOA can police landscaping, but they barely mention walls. City code allows for an 8-foot masonry wall, as long as it's on your property and built to spec. Arthur sketches plans, runs calculations, calls the city for confirmation. No permit needed for an 8-foot masonry wall. The next day, delivery trucks roll up with cinder blocks and rebar. Neighbors watch from behind their curtains. Even Mrs. Henderson 2 doors down gives him a nervous wave. Brenda notices only when the cinder blocks start piling up. She storms over. What is the meaning of this? Arthur, all business now, says, building a wall, Brenda. Since my hedges were unruly, I figured something more permanent. She splutters. It's against the covenants. He just points to the city-approved specs. Not landscaping. Permanent structure. Already cleared it with the city. Brenda turns red, starts shrieking about property values and community harmony, but Arthur's already back to work, stacking blocks like a man possessed. For once, the neighbors mostly side with Arthur, some drop off. Lemonade, others just stand outside and gawk. Even little Timmy, the paper boy, asks if he's building a fort. Arthur just grins. Yeah, kid. Something like that. But Brenda isn't finished. She rallies the HOA board, tries to pass a new emergency amendment mid-construction. All walls must be approved by the architectural committee. Arthur barely glances at the paperwork. That rule doesn't apply retroactively, Brenda. Besides, the city code's clear. Brenda looks like she's going to explode. But this is just the opening act. The war escalates. Brenda starts sending daily citations, unauthorized material storage, trash bin out of place, anything she can nitpick. Arthur, stone-faced, just files them away. Brenda patrols the street in her golf cart, dragging friends along for the show. But Arthur doesn't flinch. He puts up a no trespassing sign, installs a camera, and keeps building. The wall rises 6 feet, then 7, then 8, blocking out Brenda, the roses, and half the street. But here's the twist. You knew it was coming. Brenda stops playing HOA cop and goes full bureaucratic assassin. Arthur finds a city notice in his mailbox. Cease and desist. Complaint about an unsafe, unpermitted masonry structure. Suddenly, it's not about the HOA anymore. It's the city, threatening him with fines and demolition if he can't prove the wall's up to code. Arthur's gut drops. This isn't just red tape. This is a direct hit. He's got no official permits, no engineer's stamp. Just his own meticulous research, his receipts, and a stack of empty concrete bags with batch numbers. He spends a sleepless night documenting everything, taking photos of the rebar, digging next to the foundation for proof, pulling together every. Today, Brenda's face falls. The neighbors watch in silence as Arthur stands next to his finished wall, 8 feet of solid, ugly, glorious cinder block. For the first time in weeks, Arthur lets himself exhale. Brenda stares at the wall like it's a personal insult, and honestly, it kind of is. But Arthur doesn't gloat. He just nods, quietly, and heads inside. Of course, this isn't really the end. Brenda isn't the kind of person who gives up. Arthur knows the HOA will try something else, maybe the city, maybe some new neighbor who hates the look of cinder blocks. But for now, Arthur's fortress stands. The wall isn't just a wall. It's a monument to digging in your heels when the world tries to run you over. Privacy, in this neighborhood, doesn't come cheap. Off, the wall standing, Brenda fuming, Arthur finally catching his breath. You'd think, after all that, maybe the neighborhood would settle down, maybe folks would move on, or at least find something else to gossip about. But no, that wall became the dividing line, literally and figuratively, between Arthur and the rest of Cypress Creek. For the first week, it was almost peaceful. Arthur went about his life, keeping his head down, reading in the shade cast by his new fortress. He'd sip his coffee, gaze at the sunlight filtered through cinder blocks instead of greenery, and try not to think about the battle scars lining his front yard. Every so often, a neighbor would swing by, some curious, some quietly supportive. Mrs. Henderson brought him banana bread, plummeting about how the Great Gray Wall was destroying the spirit of Cypress Creek. She even started a petition, passing it door to door, hoping to rally enough signatures to force the wall down. But here's where things started to twist. Not everyone took Brenda's side. Some neighbors had quietly cheered when the Hedges fell, thinking Arthur would back down. But when he stood his ground, built that wall, and survived the city inspection, a weird kind of respect grew. Suddenly, people who'd always grumbled about Brenda's iron grip started wondering what else the HOA had overreached. You almost had to laugh. Arthur just kept to himself, but it was starting to wear on him. The stares, the whispered comments, the sense that even at the grocery store, he was now that guy with the wall. One afternoon, as he was scrubbing dust off the cinder blocks, yeah, it's a chore nobody tells you about, he heard a small voice at the corner of his yard. Hey, mister, can I draw on your wall? It was Timmy, the paper boy, clutching a fistful of colored chalk. Arthur paused, looked at the kid, then at the blank gray expanse. For a moment, he hesitated. Was this another way for Brenda? And a surprisingly accurate sketch of a golden retriever. The mural caught on. Soon, other kids from the block joined in, even a couple of teenagers, one of whom spray-painted a big, clumsy freedom in neon green. Instead of looking like a prison, the wall became a canvas. Parents started strolling by, laughing, snapping photos. Brenda, of course, was furious, but there wasn't a single bylaw about chalk art or graffiti, at least, not yet. But here's the kicker. Just when things started to feel almost normal again, Arthur found an envelope taped to his mailbox. Not a city notice this time. Inside was a handwritten letter, neat script, and signed, but the tone was unmistakable. You may have won this round, Mr. Vance, but the HOA is forever. You cannot build a wall high enough to keep out the rules. Yeah, that's what it said. It would have been funny if it wasn't so creepy. Arthur just shook his head, looked at the wall, now a living. And that's how it goes in places like Cypress Creek, where a patch of grass, a hedge, or a wall can turn into a battleground, where the fight for a little privacy turns into a test of wills that drags in the whole block. Arthur learned something most folks never do. You can lose the battle for your hedges, but you just might win the war for your dignity. And if you're lucky, inspire a whole lot of people to question who's really in charge. So, let me ask you, if you were in Arthur's shoes, would you have let it go or built your own wall? And if someone came after your freedom in the name of community, how far would you go to hold your ground? Drop your stories and thoughts below, because out here in the suburbs, the lines between right and wrong are as blurry as a chalk drawing on cinder block. And trust me, the next chapter is always just around the corner.